Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the RTI Insider Press Pass podcast. I'm your host, Jack Foster, as always, joined alongside Ryan Schumpert and Rick Butler here on this Wednesday, October 30th edition, Halloween Eve here in Knoxville. And Tennessee is hosting Kentucky this weekend. We are going to preview that matchup. Tennessee coming off a bye and Kentucky coming into Knoxville reeling. Not as much to get to as, say, an Alabama or an Oklahoma game this time around. As Kentucky, we kind of know what they are at this point, but still an intriguing matchup given Tennessee's coming off a bye and obviously coming off the Alabama win a couple of weeks ago. But before we get into it, Ryan, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Just my brain works in memes. And as you were doing that intro, I was thinking Oklahoma, Kentucky, handshake emoji, currently in free fall. So
yeah, it's tough times.
Bad
in
vibes.
Lexington.
Yeah, bad vibes in Lexington.
Rick, can you believe that Kentucky almost beat Georgia and beat Ole Miss? Like, that feels ages ago.
It really does, because of the collapse that they've had since. What a wild season it's been for Kentucky. And you guys are right. They've been spiraling a little bit. Knoxville is their nightmare coming into town this week. I think it's just an awful situation for them to be in. You've got the dark mode jerseys. You've got the night game. You've got a crowd that's fired up from comments 2 weeks ago that Kentucky now has to pay for. I just think that even though they played well against Georgia, even though they played well against Ole Miss, like you said, this Saturday night is a nightmare situation for the Wildcats.
September 28th was the date Kentucky strolled into the Vaught and beat playoff contender at the time. Ole Miss, still kind of a playoff contender, but a good team in Ole Miss on the road. And Ryan, I remember you tweeting something to the effect of, I'm sorry for all the Mark Stoops hate, but now you're back to being justified. And for the most part, you've been justified in the entire Mark Stoops tenure, I'd say. Sure, he's had some good years at Kentucky, but never a heavyweight in the SEC by any stretch. And now it feels like an all-time low for the Mark Stoops era.
Yeah, I mean, this has really been like an anti-Mark Stoops year, because that's like where my hate towards Mark Stoops comes, is he's done well at Kentucky, but he just gets so much praise. Like, I think the Athletic does every year. They're top 25 coaches. I don't think Josh Heupel's ever been above Mark Stoops, which is crazy to me after the last 2 years. And Mark Stoops done well at Kentucky, but he just never wins big games, and that's what has made this year so strange. He gave Georgia probably the best game he's given Georgia since, Kirby's second year. And Georgia's been the Georgia we know now. He beat Ole Miss, who, maybe isn't quite as good as we thought before the year, but is definitely a good team. And then all the bad SEC teams that he usually feast on, the South Carolina, the Vanderbilts, it's usually Mississippi State this year. It's Auburn for him. They've lost all those games. So it's been a very backwards year for Mark Stoops. And, he needs another big win, a win in Knoxville to kind of save the season. But as Rick said, it's hard to see that path.
And that's the other thing about it, is that Mark Stoops has not been good against Tennessee. Yes, he's had some other big wins throughout certain years. And yes, Kentucky has gotten themselves to good final records, but they've always struggled against Tennessee. I believe that Mark Stoops' record is now up to, 2-10, 2-11, maybe something in that area. So it's been difficult for the Wildcats not being able to beat their rival Tennessee. Yes, Tennessee's been good the last couple of years, but man, there were some opportunities that they just whiffed on, and I think that's added up. That's felt like some gut punches in a fight over that add up over time. So I think that's another interesting element to it.
Yeah, 2-9. I think this is his
2-9. Okay,
12th season at Kentucky.
Okay.
Yeah, it's tough when you lose to. Vanderbilt's good this year, but you did lose to Vandy at home in Lexington. That's tough. And then losing to Florida badly by 28 points, 4-touchdown loss to a bad Gators team. And then the one that really is the worst is last week, home loss to a bad Auburn team. There's no excusing that. Only 10 points scored for Kentucky. The quarterback controversy was, yeah. So a quarterback controversy was birthed a little bit, turning to Gavin Wimsatt later in the game. Brock Vandegrift's had a tough year, but there's a lot of problems with this Kentucky team. Ryan, I know you spoke with John Hill, Lexington Herald's John Hill, there's a piece on that on RockTopInsider.com. You can go check that out. Interview with John, and he talked about the problems with Kentucky, and he talked about there's a lot of injuries going on with Kentucky on both sides of the ball. Protection's been an issue. There's no bell cow running back like Kentucky's had in the past. i.e. Ray Davis last year and multiple others go down the line. There's none of that this year. It just feels like there's not one specific area to point to on Kentucky where it's like, this is why it's a bad year for the Cats. It just feels like all across the board, it's a lot of bad.
Yeah, no, 100%. It offensively feels a lot like it was 2 years ago. And really, I mean, I would say that's probably been the biggest difference for Kentucky the last few years is just the offensive line's been bad. I mean, the offensive line for a while was not that it was the best in the SEC or anything, but pretty solid. But it's bad. There's no bell cow running back. You won't hear me doing a lot of Will Levis defending, but I do think Will Levis is a better player than Brock Vandagriff. So just not a ton of talent on the offensive side of the ball. And then defensively, I mean, they've showed flashes, but been good for, large portions of the season. But Jack, I think that's really, there's been injuries on both sides of the ball, but it feels like, and John said some of this too, the combination of the injuries defensively versus at times just kind of the dam breaking, the defense feeling like they have to do everything and not winning games. Like that's where, Tennessee's situation is interesting. The defense at times it feels like has to do everything, but Tennessee's found a way to win games. And when you're winning that, everything's all good when you're winning, but when you're losing games and one side of the ball is not only not pulling their weight, but not pulling any weight, I think that's led to Kentucky's defense kind of not giving in, probably wouldn't be the right word, but maybe giving out and kind of just falling flat at a couple different spots the last few weeks.
Yeah, offensively, it's an identity crisis for Kentucky. What do they well? What do they want to do well? Obviously, they got Barryon Brown, who is a very talented wide receiver. I think he'd be a talented wide receiver on any team, but they don't have ways to get him the ball consistently. They don't have ways to take advantage of that player in the system. So you're right, and then so much just falls over to that defense to be better than they are for all 4 quarters and to carry this team. And you've just sort of seen the wheels fall off here in the last couple of weeks. So I think Ryan's right. That's a great point to make.
Yeah. How about this? Maybe if Mark Stoops, not probably going to get fired, but if he leaves after this season, hire Liam Cohen, because the years he's been in Lexington, that offense has actually been pretty good. Wasn't there 2 years ago, was back last year, did what he could with Devin Leary, who I think was a limited player at quarterback, but you still had good games and you still had a pulse. And obviously Ray Davis had a huge year. So hire him. Maybe
he always
turn things around.
He always seemed to have a very good plan of how to attack Tennessee. Last year, I mean, to just spread the ball out, a lot of 5 wide, a lot of short passes against Tennessee's zone defense, which I think has kind of been the consistent theme that's given Tennessee issues. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if he would take it. I guess he probably would take it.
Why not?
I don't know.
I mean,
well,
unless he's in head coach talks, which I don't know if he's quite there yet in the NFL.
I don't think he's quite there either, but I think he probably will be before too long if he keeps on doing a good job in the NFL, which it's like, short term, yes, but long term, why would you ever want to be Kentucky football coach instead of an NFL head coach?
Where is he in the league?
Tampa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Tampa. Oh, hanging out there with old Bake Mayfield.
Yeah. John Summerall.
Well, we'll see what Liam Cohen. I'm now interested to see what he can do with that offense, considering they're down their 2 best wide receivers. I believe they're both. I haven't checked in on either of them, but hey, how's he going to take advantage of that here coming up? Or not take advantage, but how is he going to? What's the word I'm looking for here? Mitigate. Thank you. How is he going to mitigate that? That'll kind of be a telling tale of an offense coordinator.
John Summerall is the name that I always think. I keep on thinking it's going to be the next coach at Kentucky. Was a Stoops assistant, did a great job at Troy. Now in his first year at Tulane.
That makes sense.
Which, I mean, I don't think that would be a big step down by any means either from what Stoops has been.
To what you said, Rick, 2 words, Cade Otton last week. Monster game. Just pepper the tight end. That's the offensive game plan now for Tampa.
That's my plan with the Houston Texans this week, by the way. I'm hoping that Dalton Schultz can carry me to the promised land.
So many injuries in the NFL. This is on just side note. I've always been an NFL guy. Literally have my whole life. But this year, because of all the injuries, it is really hard for me to enjoy NFL football more than college football. I think this is the first year where I'm like, I'd rather watch football on Saturdays than Sundays because everybody's hurt. It's so just mind-bogglingly absurd how many injuries there have been to top players.
Yeah, and it also doesn't feel like there's like the parity that we usually have in the NFL.
Yeah.
Like it just feels like there's so many bad teams in the NFL this season. I think I saw a stat that it was like 30% of the teams roughly in the AFC have 2 or less wins. Like it just doesn't feel like you have nearly the the teams right around 500 that are in the playoff hunt until December.
I skipped out on the morning slate on Sunday just because I had other stuff to do. I had errands to run. I looked at the win-loss records. I looked at some of the matchups, and just nothing really seemed too enticing to me. Now, I might have missed a good game here too, but to y'all's point, college has just been – the college game has been phenomenal this year. There is so much, will they, won't they, who's going to take this game, who's going to take that game, who's going to crumble. I mean, even the Texas A&M LSU game was a thriller last week as A&M
awesome.
just tried, LSU were trying to give that up with all the mistakes that they were making. So college has been, and I'm a college guy myself, but it's been just a fantastic season so far.
By the way, Ryan, I think it's 7 of 16 AFC teams have 2 or less wins. So brutal.
That's crazy.
That's almost half. So
Yeah.
Let's dive in. Kentucky at Tennessee, another late one in Neyland Stadium. 7:45 kick, right?
Don't tell Lane
7:45,
Kiffin.
7:30?
Yes. Yeah, I think probably 7:55 is the actual kickoff, but broadcast will start at 7:45.
Right. So late night in Neyland. Rick, I'll start with you. Just give me your biggest key to this game, a key to a Tennessee victory here on Saturday night against the Cats.
Well, I want to start with something that's going to be off the field. And I know that this is something that's been talked about a lot this week, but just the crowd noise from going back to the Alabama comments a week or two ago, I think that is something that Tennessee fans are latching onto, have not forgotten about in the 8 or 9 days since it happened. I think it's going to be an extremely rowdy atmosphere, but then you bring back in dark mode. Again, we just talked about that Texas A&M LSU game. That was a wild game last night. You could see, or last week, and you could tell that there was excitement. You could tell that there were energy. These are 18-year-old kids on this Tennessee football team. I think they like the black jerseys. I think the fans love the spooky Rocky top. And I think that this Tennessee fan base understands that Kentucky's a bit of a wounded duck coming into Neyland Stadium right now. I think Tennessee's fans are going to feel empowered that they can make a difference in this game. So before I even get into anything on the field, I think that Tennessee is going to have an immediate advantage because Kentucky is not coming into this stadium as a fearless team. To me, they look like a team on their heels. Again, I mentioned this game as a little bit of a nightmare situation. What worse situation is there to go to versus a fan base that wants to kind of just tear your head off, not really in the nicest way possible, and they're doing it at 7:45 p.m. They're doing it in the dark mode jerseys. They're doing it with the spooky Rocky top. They're doing it with Halloween 3 days in the rearview mirror. I just think that the environment for Tennessee is going to be unbelievable, and it's going to immediately present a tough case for Kentucky to get this thing rolling. Tennessee has had problems starting fast here in the last couple of weeks, certainly in conference play. Maybe this is an opportunity to. I really also think that Kentucky is a team where if they get punched in the face, I don't know how well they're going to respond to that. So maybe all of these things can kind of come together for Tennessee. The atmosphere, the environment, maybe getting to a fast start for the offense. If those things come together, I think that Kentucky's going to have a real hard time getting things going in the first half. But we haven't really seen that from Tennessee's offense in the first half. So we will see. But I do think that the crowd and the environment, not to take it too far away from the field immediately, but I really think that's going to play a big factor into this game and just not giving Kentucky any confidence from the second they walk in the building.
Yeah, crowd will be fired up. And by the way, the jersey reveal, best jersey reveal I've ever seen. And Noah Halford. I don't know you, and it's probably, I mean, if you are listening to this, you are the freaking man. Like, as someone who's kind of in video editing and that side of things, I saw his tweet about what went into it and all the animation. Of course, there's multiple people involved in that, but like it's 1 minute and 10 seconds long. But it probably took them so many days of just consistent work on that to get that done. And it was an awesome idea that Noah had, and the execution was flawless. So shout out to that team, because that's the best jersey reveal I've ever seen.
Jack, you mentioned that you're the video editor of the panel right here. I might be the self-proclaimed comic book nerd of the panel that we have right here. The Venom references with all the pop culture that's going on right now. There's a Venom movie out in theaters. It's the more violent, more aggressive alter ego of Peter Parker, Eddie Brock. It was so cool to see from an absolute nerd like myself. I know other nerds around the country were freaking out over it too. Other geeks like myself. That was absolutely unbelievable. The Venom theme was something I won't forget for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. I'm usually the old man hater, but nothing bad for me to say about it. I thought it was really, really cool.
I was very curious if Ryan was just judging the entire time because
No,
it feels like
I thought it
almost
was really cool.
like when Rick was talking, you're like had this little smirk, and I'm like, oh, Ryan's just silently judging over there. But yeah, it's impossible to hate on that one. I mean, it's just great.
No,
it's very
it was
good.
awesome. It was really, really cool. So no hatred for me. Even I can't come up with something to hate on it for.
One thing that I want to get into with the game, and I've actually been, Jack, I'm sorry if I'm taking this in a different direction or something different right now, but this is something I've really been thinking about this week, and I know that Ryan put a lot of research into it yesterday and has a great article about it over on Rocky Top Insider right now. But Ryan, we're talking about Kentucky's offense just not really having an identity, not really having a bell cow running back. They went to a 2-quarterback system last week against Auburn. I believe that it was Brock Vandagriff in the first half, and then they put the backup in Gavin for the second half. Can you kind of explain just where Kentucky is with this whole quarterback system, with what they're going to maybe do, with what Tennessee's maybe going to see? I know you were looking into that, listening to some of the press conferences over in Lexington over the last couple of days.
Yeah, so Gavin Wimsatt, who's the backup, they've used him kind of as a wildcat quarterback for a lot of this season. So it wasn't the first time he's really gotten real playing time. He's second on Kentucky's team third on Kentucky's team with 42 rushes. Vandagriff is actually second with 72. So he's got more rushes than Kentucky's second running back. All that to say, Vandagriff had a terrible second quarter last week, threw a horrible interception. So they went to Wimsatt at halftime. He was not very good. I think it was like 3 of 10 for 50-ish yards and interception. Kentucky's offense didn't score in the second half. The Wildcats have not said what they're going to do yet, though I think they have said they know what they're going to do. They just haven't announced it. So my thought is that Vandagriff's probably going to be the starter. We'll see. Mark Stoops has yet to meet with the media this week. His mother passed away, so thoughts and prayers with the Stoops family. He will talk to the media on Wednesday. By the time we're listening to this, we'll probably have what he said on the SEC coaches teleconference up on the site. So we'll see what he has to say. We'll see if he has an announcement. But as of Wednesday morning, Kentucky's kind of said, we know what we're going to do. We're not going to make it public yet. But my guess is that Vandagriff will start. But they do have those 2 quarterbacks. And, to me, the thing that's kind of strange about it, and why I don't see there's any advantage really going away from Vandagriff. I thought, maybe Wimsatt's like a freshman. He's a senior who also transferred into Rutgers. So Vandagriff's the younger player. So I don't really see why Kentucky. I'm sure they'll probably play Wimsatt some, like they have in these kind of wildcat quarterback type situations to try to spark the run game that hasn't been very good. But I expect him not to be like the full-time quarterback in this game. But again, I could be wrong. We'll see what happens.
And one thing I think with just where Kentucky is, you talk about these 2 quarterbacks you talk about neither one of them being able to take that position from the other, just sort of some muddy water right there. I wonder if Kentucky gets desperate at any point in this game, if they maybe put both quarterbacks out on the field, if they try to do some sort of trickery or some sort of flea flicker, just something along those lines to get Tennessee on their heels, to use what they have to some sort of advantage. Again, maybe it's a little bit of desperation. Maybe it's just a little bit of, hey, we're just going to throw something at the wall and see what sticks. But I do think that that's something that Tennessee could potentially need to get ready for. At the same time, though, Volunteer defense has seen Jalen Milroe. They've seen Taylon Green. They've seen some athletic quarterbacks. They saw Michael Hawkins when they didn't maybe expect to see Michael Hawkins against Oklahoma. So I think that either
quarterbacks all year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They saw DJ Lagway right there in their own stadium just a couple weeks ago. So I think that Tennessee is going to be very prepared for the situation. It's not an area that I worry about for this Tennessee defense. I think no matter what is thrown at them, I see this Tennessee defense with Tim Banks being able to adjust, being able to figure it out. Even if Kentucky maybe goes into 12 personnel format, Tennessee will put 3 linebackers out in the backfield or out in the middle of the defense, and I think they'll be prepared for those sort of things. So could see some trickery, maybe not, but I think that Tennessee's defense is going to be prepared for whatever they see with those quarterbacks.
Yeah, if a quarterback's going to beat Tennessee, Ryan, to me, you have to be a pretty accurate passer and have a good arm. Like we saw Taylon Green make some sick throws in Fayetteville. That's how Arkansas was able to beat Tennessee through the air. I think Tennessee has a great advantage against mobile quarterbacks now. So it feels like if Kentucky's going to have a chance to win this game, they're going to have a great Brock Vandagriff game probably. I don't see how they win it with Wimsatt.
No, I agree. And you're right. It's kind of a funny turn from where Tennessee's defense was
Yeah,
just a
it's
couple
been the
years
opposite.
ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no kidding.
It's really flipped. But yeah, I think you have to be somebody that can hit those throws in the intermediate,
Mhm.
especially when Tennessee goes. I mean, I think Tennessee in zone coverage is when you've seen stuff over the middle of the field in the intermediate be the most open. And you're right. Taylor Green hit those throws. Taylor Green also hit some really nice deep throws against man-to-man coverage. I mean, he's been the only guy, him and Andrew Armstrong have been the only guys that have been able to get much of anything on Jermon McCoy. And as we talked about after that game, McCoy had pretty good coverage on both those big plays. It was just better throws and catches. So I'm with you. But even then, I mean, it's like not like it's really been a strength of Brock Vandegrift. He's completing
No,
57% of his passes, 6 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. The one thing I will say that's really interesting about Kentucky's receiving core, Barry Brown, I think, is the name that most people think of because he's a big play guy and he's a guy from Tennessee. Dane Key's really been their best receiver, and he's had a
he's the
really
man.
good year. 39 catches, 587 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But it's crazy. Those are the only 2 Kentucky receivers to have double-digit catches this year. Like, they're the only 2 guys that really get the ball thrown to. And, I mean, you think about Tennessee has, as everybody who's listening to this knows, has had a lot of issues in their passing game. And even in the games they blew teams out, they mostly just ran the ball and hit some big plays. Tennessee has 4 receivers that have at least double-digit catches. And, 3 of those guys are Brew has 20, Squirrel has 20, Chris Brazzell has 18, and then Dante Thornton at 12. So it is really, they do not spread it out. They throw the ball to 2 guys, and really Dane Key is the main guy that's going to get a lot of targets in this game.
Yeah, Dane Key's the guy who had a big day against Ole Miss, 8 for 105 and a touch. So, yeah, I thought he was good last year, too. He's been in the program a minute. He's a junior, so 3 years, and it feels like he's been productive his whole Kentucky career in some way as kind of a secondary option, third option. So, yeah, Kentucky has a couple of guys, but it feels like it's a struggle to get the ball to them consistently as we've laid out. The quarterback issue is huge for Kentucky. Ryan, if you have a big key you want to lay out here before we move on, feel free.
Yeah, I think it's as simple as Tennessee just scoring points in the first half. Low bar, very broad. Just don't let this game be 0-0, 3-0, 7-0 Kentucky at halftime. Even if it's 10-0, that's not going to be sexy. People are probably going to be upset about it, but I think that sets you up to win this game a comfortable 27-7 or something like that.
Hey, to Ryan's point right there, I mean, I think a 10-0 halftime lead over Kentucky for Tennessee, I think that feels like a 14-0 lead. I think it even feels like a little bit bigger because I don't have a lot of faith that Kentucky's offense is going to do much. I agree with Ryan. Got to get this thing started early just so you can put Kentucky away because I think that this is the type of team that you can put away early in the game, in the first quarter, in the second quarter. You can really create that gap of separation right there. But I also think this is a game that we see Tennessee pound the ball. I know we talk about Nico's passing game a lot. I know we talk about wanting to see that passing game get going. But to me, this is a game that I see not Heisman contender necessarily, but I do see him start to sneak up in some of these top 10 lists. Dylan Sampson, I see a big game for him. I think that Tennessee should just pound that running game. I think that maybe Deshaun Bishop could have a couple big breakaway runs, but I think Tennessee can control a lot of the game with the way they run that ball. And then again, like Ryan said, just do something to get a lead going into halftime because I think whatever that lead is, it's going to feel bigger because Kentucky is not the type of team that can just make a big comeback on you in a hurry. So, First half is going to be really important in this game, but they've also got Georgia looming in a couple weeks. Cannot go into that Georgia game with still first half deficiencies. Mississippi State up next for Tennessee next week. That's another opportunity, but you've got to be able to show something here in these first 2 weeks to give your team a little bit of that confidence to be able to do that against Georgia in what will be a rowdy Athens, Georgia coming up in a few weeks. So start fast, use the running game. That's the way I see Tennessee taking control early.
Yeah, I think it's big to just carry over the momentum because to your point, Rick, I mean, Mississippi State's defense is so bad next week. Like, I have a hard time thinking people won't leave that game feeling pretty good about Tennessee's offense.
Right.
So if Tennessee's offense can be good in this game and you have second half Alabama in this game, they do what I'd be surprised if they don't do against Mississippi State. That at least gives them some confidence and a feel like things are moving into the right direction before the offense's toughest task of the season in Athens.
Yeah, and you talk about running the ball, Rick. Kentucky, middle of the road. I think they're like 52nd in rush D. They're not bad. They're not great. So I feel like Tennessee has the advantage there. And with Kentucky's linebacker core beat up too, it gives them the advantage. But yeah, like Ryan said, you'd like to see the momentum continue. I mean, we're talking 3 straight first halves without a first half point for Tennessee. It's been a while. And last week we talked about on the bye week pod, is everything fixed? So our scale of 1 to 10, like how we're confident that Tennessee's offense is going to hit its stride. It was still sub 5 for all of us. So it's not necessarily that the second half of Alabama completely changed the outlook on Tennessee's offense, but this game probably can make more of an impact in that area of changing that outlook. If Tennessee can continue it and keep the pedal to the metal, Nico can have a good game start to finish, which really hasn't happened against a good opponent yet. Then I think we'll be talking a little bit differently about Tennessee's offense. And then Miss State, it's the perfect get right game anyway ahead of Georgia. So I think you'd like to see that. My key for this, it's pretty simple, but I think the only way Kentucky wins this game is if they have just incredibly short fields and maybe 1 or 2 defensive touchdowns.
Bingo.
You just can't turn the ball over in your own end, especially. And if you give up a pick 6 or something, scoop and score, that's how this thing gets quick in a hurry, or gets tight in a hurry. And then Tennessee continues being tight on offense, then it just spirals. And Kentucky could win a low-scoring affair. I mean, we kind of saw it with Arkansas. Arkansas's offense way better Kentucky's, but they still only scored, 19 points, right?
19,
so,
yep.
It's not like Tennessee's defense was just bad in that game. That's how this can happen, and Tennessee's offense could struggle once again, and that's how Kentucky wins.
Yeah. And by the way, Tennessee only I believe it's I wrote this on an article on RTI yesterday. I'm 99% sure on this statistic here. I believe Tennessee's only the 5th SEC team in recent history to enter this point in the season, not having given up more than 20 points in a single game so far. All the other 4 are national champions. So maybe there is a little bit of something there, but I completely agree with Jack. Frankly, I couldn't agree more. I don't believe that Kentucky is a team that can consistently drive the ball down the field on this Tennessee defense. In fact, I kind of think that's crazy to say. I think that if Kentucky's going to score, it's going to be short field opportunities. It's going to be Berrien Brown taking advantage of special teams. Man, kick the ball through the end zone. Jackson Ross, hold, kick, let the Gunners go get down there. I think those are all big things just to take care of the ball, handle your business on special teams. And I think that sets up Kentucky in, hey, go out there and prove it. Go out there and prove you can go 70 yards down the field to put the ball in the end zone. Go out there and prove you can you can move the ball even 50 yards to go put it in field goal range. I don't believe that Kentucky is capable of doing that right now, especially on this Tennessee defense. Jack's right. A short field is everything that Kentucky is praying for right now. They are opening their trick-or-treat bags tonight, and they are hoping that they see a short field against Tennessee in that candy bag. There's no doubt about it. So as long as Tennessee does not give them those opportunities, I think the Volunteers are going to be in pretty good shape.
It may need to be a defense touchdown too. Short field might not be enough. 12 Kentucky's been terrible in the red zone, 12 touchdowns and 24 trips. And then obviously, everybody listening to this knows Tennessee's defense has been pretty stellar in the red zone. So I think while short field would be big, I think it almost needs to be a defense/special teams touchdown or 2 for the Cats.
And Josh Heupel, going for it on 4th and 1 inside your own 20. Don't do that in this game. Just punt it.
No, make them play your defense. Make them play your defense.
Even if it's like 4th and 2 at the 50, punt it.
You go.
They ain't moving the ball.
You go tell the defense, hey, we've got Jermon McCoy, right? We've got a great defensive line. We've got 3 linebackers back there. Let's go play some defense here, and I think that's going to work out pretty well.
And I will say this. I mean, it has to be a complete disaster if Tennessee loses this game. And I have been, before Arkansas was basically saying the same thing. So I'm a moron because Arkansas won that game, and I was basically saying the same stuff. But it will be a complete disaster if Tennessee loses this game. Multiple things have to go wrong. If Tennessee's offense is bad again, this is going to be a very, very ugly watch. I still think Tennessee wins, even if the offense is playing at a 2 out of 10, but it's going to be a horrific watch. I'm talking 13-3. That's literally what this game could be if Tennessee's offense is horrible, which could happen. We've seen it happen. So could be an ugly game. I don't see how Kentucky scores, Rick.
I don't necessarily either. And again, it's things that we've been talking about. And I think that another thing that Tennessee can do to help mitigate that and just kind of keep a bad horse down is using that running game. Kentucky's been susceptible to the running game so far this year. Against Auburn, I believe they really got gashed in that area. So I think that Tennessee can take advantage of what they have. Maybe this is a big game for the offensive line to bounce back. This is somewhere we've been critical of throughout the year, especially on pass block. And I know I'm talking about running right now, but maybe this is a game where we come together on Saturday night after that, or really I should say Sunday morning. We say, hey, you know what? That offensive line was able to assert their will in that game. They were able to create lanes for Dylan Sampson. They were able to create edges for a Deshaun Bishop, something along those lines. So I think as long as Tennessee continues to use the running game to their advantage, you keep that Kentucky offense off the field, you keep them on the sideline where they've got to think about what they're going to do next and just kind of get in their heads about that. I think that's another opportunity where you keep that Kentucky offense very limited throughout the game.
Ryan, is there any individual player you're looking at more than others in this game to have a big game, or that you think that can exploit a mismatch and have a really big day Saturday night?
I don't think it's necessarily that in terms of exploit a mismatch. I think you just want to see some stuff in the passing game, and Tennessee hit some stuff down the field. Not that I feel like that's a given. It's just Kentucky's defense is solid enough. Now, there are some injuries at corner, but Kentucky's defense is solid enough, and Tennessee's offense has been so inconsistent without really any stars besides Dylan Sampson. Like, I'm sure Dylan Sampson will have another good game. He plays well every week. But nothing just glaring stands out. I think, to me, it's more about, can Tennessee's offensive line have another good game from a pass protection standpoint, and can Tennessee connect on some of those balls down the field that have been open? And there's no reason to think it won't be. In 3 years, 3 matchups against Kentucky, Tennessee's had open guys down the field all 3 times under Josh Heupel. So I expect that to be the same.
And they've done that early in the game as well. Yeah,
I mean, I'd like to see Chris Brazel or Dante Thornton, those 2 guys, make some plays down the field. I mean, Thornton's been, to me, their best receiver, and Brazel feels like he's been on the cusp of kind of breaking through a little bit the last few weeks. But want to see one of those guys maybe separate themselves and have a big game.
Yeah, I agree. And it feels like the receivers are not hitting their stride, but like I said, Brazel's been playing better, or Brazel. I guess it said Brazel because that's what
I think it's Brazel.
Every broadcaster says. I need to start saying it, even though Brazel sounds way cooler. Brazel. It feels like he's been playing better, and of course, just getting this passing game in a flow is important in this game. Rick, question for you. Dylan Sampson, 17 rush touchdowns, I believe, right now. 2 more, he breaks the single season record. Does he do it against Kentucky?
Yes. I think 2 is very feasible. I think that Tennessee is going to be able to get to a position where they can get down to the red zone and they can just keep pushing the ball forward. And I don't think they have to get too creative. And that's not saying that I don't think they're going to use the passing game where it's not important to. Like Ryan said, man, try to get some of those deep shots down the field, try to build a little bit of rhythm with those wide receivers. But I think that once they get down to the red zone, we all know what they're going to do. And we all know that they're going to be using Dylan Sampson as just a wrecking ball into that, as a little speedster into the end zone. So, yeah, I think that Tennessee's getting into the red zone at least twice this game. And I think that Dylan Sampson is the go-to guy in that area. So I give it better odds than not that Dylan Sampson, what did you say, breaks the record or ties the record?
He needs 1 to tie. That feels like an absolute hammer.
A given.
But he needs 2 rushing touchdowns to break the single season record.
I'll go minus 500 odds that he gets the first one. I'll go minus 150 that he gets the second one as well. So I think they're both a pretty good bet.
Yeah.
I'm also not a gambler, so I'm kind of just throwing out numbers here. But I think that gets you in the right direction.
Gene McIver had 18 rush touchdowns in 1929. So
1929. Yep. Yeah, no, I'm with you. It feels like the only thing that really keeps him from breaking it is if what I just said happened. Tennessee connects on some of these deep balls and scores touchdowns on them. Like, it feels like that's the only thing. A bunch of big play touchdowns in the passing game is the only thing that feels like it'll keep him from getting 2.
Would be kind of fitting for Sampson to break it against Kentucky, too, because one of the most memorable Dylan Sampson games of his career at Tennessee was last year. It doesn't really show in the stat line, but I mean, he won the game for them there in those final drives, just carrying the offense down the field when it was struggling to win in Lexington. So it would be kind of fitting for him to break it against the Cats.
Yeah, he was great down the stretch in that game last year.
Ryan, where are you leaning with a score prediction? You obviously don't have to give me a specific prediction right now, but kind of the point range. I believe the line's 16.5. Do you think Tennessee covers?
Yeah, I think Tennessee covers. I think somewhere in the 30-10 range, roughly somewhere in that range. I'll tell you what I like in this game is the under, which I feel like I like in every Tennessee game. I think it's at like 45, 46. I wish I had it in front of me because I wrote about it earlier, or wrote it in story about the game line earlier this week.
45.5.
45.5, where I think like almost every Tennessee game, at least every Tennessee game in SEC play, I believe the under is hit. And Kentucky, I think it's like I think they've played 8 games at this point. Is that right? Yeah, 8 games. I think it's hitting like the under's hit in like 6 of those games. So both these teams, the under seems to hit a lot. As we've talked about, I have a hard time thinking Kentucky scores. I think essentially the line says Tennessee is going to win 30-14, somewhere in that range. I have a hard time thinking Kentucky is going to get to 14, to be honest with you. So I think it's going to take Tennessee having like a really big game offensively to get the over, which is in play, but it doesn't feel like a given to me either.
Oh, Rick, I think your mic's muted.
I think if you're taking the over, you're probably projecting that Tennessee's offense is either going to take a big step forward or that Kentucky's going to be able to do something that's been uncharacteristic of their team over the last couple of weeks. And I think those are a little bit bold projections. Could they happen? One more than the other to me, but it's a little bit of bold projections either way. I think Ryan's right. I like the under as well. Ryan said the 27-10 range or the 30-10 range. There's 27-10. We're right there on the same wavelength. I'm in agreement. And no, I didn't write that down after you said that. That would be very unprofessional. That would be very bad journalistic integrity from me. Now I'm probably making people wonder, but I did write that down.
Check the tape.
No, I know. Check the tape. I've been writing down notes all day.
If you're listening, Rick, showed a piece of paper 1 inch away from the camera that said 27-10. So wrote it down.
Yeah, thank you.
I like that. I like that range. I was leaning like 27-6. That'll probably be my score prediction. So something like that. I just don't think Kentucky scores at all. It's a bad team. They're going to go into Knoxville and suffer 6th loss of the season. Kentucky will have to win out to make a bowl game after they lose this game.
Yeah, and
the wheels
they
are
have
falling
Texas. Off. Texas left on the schedule still, I think. They have somebody who's definitely
in Austin. So not going to happen.
Not crazy.
Yeah.
Not crazy. Maybe a little crazy.
Murray State, Texas, Louisville. The stat that's crazy. I mean, just looking at this game, Tennessee has not given up 20 points in a game all season. Kentucky hasn't eclipsed 20 points in an SEC game all season. So I think they're averaging like 13 points in SEC games this year. I want to say I saw a stat earlier this week that they have the worst conference scoring offense of any Power 4 team this season. So pretty dreadful offense going on the road, hostile environment against a really good defense. It's hard to see too many paths to success for the Cats offense.
Hey, by the way, one quick thing. We've been talking a lot about just some odds, some gambling information. We've got a really great article over at RockyTopInsider.com that's got a ton, and I mean a ton of gambling information that you might want to know in order to help you make the bet that you want to for this weekend coming up. So make sure to just scroll down a little bit on the homepage. It's going to be in one of those sections, Tennessee sports betting, but a really good article that will give you a ton of information. It's got Kentucky against the spread, Tennessee against the spread, what both teams do well, what both teams don't do well. It's going to give you a lot of great information right there. Head over to RockyTopInsider.com for all of your gambling help needs for Tennessee, Kentucky.
And if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. I think we're maybe legally required to throw that in.
Thank you.
13.5 points per game in SEC play, by the way, for Kentucky. Taking the under.
Yeah. Not a bad pick.
All right. Halloween's tomorrow, although Rick, I think, has said twice on this episode that it was tonight. So it's
tomorrow.
Right. Halloween is tomorrow.
Yeah.
Any big Halloween plans? What we got? And also, how do we feel about Halloween? Like what's your feelings towards Halloween?
I know Ryan's going trick-or-treating in the neighborhood. right? He's got his pillow. He's got
Obviously,
his pillowcase, because some people they bring out the bags or the little totes. Not Ryan. Ryan is a seasoned professional. He brings the pillowcase. The pillowcase has much more volume to get the candy from the unsuspecting neighbors. Ryan, look, I'll tell you what, a bowl with a take one sign, he's afraid to see Ryan on a Halloween night. He's going to be all over that. He's going to be taking more than one, maybe even 3 or 4 pieces of the candy. So I think that Ryan's got a pretty good night planned for Thursday night. Am I right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, here's what I like the vibes of Halloween. I like Halloween. I'm not a Halloween hater, but I am an old man, so I'm certainly not dressing up and going to any parties or anything like that. So I guess overall I'd be neutral. Like, I'm not a diehard Halloween fan, but I like the vibes. I saw the Beetlejuice movie last night. Good Halloween vibes. Enjoyed the film.
I'm not a big scary movie person, but the other night I did just watch American Psycho. Just why not? That's probably my favorite scary horror movie. It's not even a horror movie. It's kind of like a black comedy, dark comedy, So, but I thought it was fun.
I'm right there with you guys. I watched the whole Halloween Town trilogy, just yesterday to get ready for this podcast. So.
All of them?
All of them, of course. All 4.
On a Tuesday?
The quintology.
I'm
a Halloween Town guy. Yeah.
This is incredible. I was laying in bed.
I love Marnie.
I was laying in bed 2 nights ago, and I was like, yeah, those Halloween Town movies. I used to love those as a kid. And I proceeded to go read the plot on Wikipedia for all 4 movies, trying to refresh my brain on what happened. Probably spent 20 minutes just going Wikipedia page. Halloween Town 2, Calibur's Revenge.
Something like that.
I don't know. The 4th one's college. I can't remember the name.
I think it might be the Return to Halloween Town.
There we go.
I'm not sure. I didn't actually watch those yesterday, but I did watch a couple of them last year. I like Ryan said, I loved those as a kid. I thought they were just fun little movies to watch. But as I've gotten older, I've enjoyed kind of being on the other side of Halloween. I like seeing the trick-or-treaters coming around. I like that whole business. Yeah. So I do try to, I'll be here. Actually, I won't be here tomorrow for it, but I do like setting up and posting up where I can and just seeing the festivities. So I think that means I'm getting a little bit older. But I think I've also got maybe a shindig to go to this weekend, more on the adult side of things.
Halloween
dressing up?
We shall see.
Are you dressing up?
Am I dressing up? This is actually a good question for both of you guys. Morgan told me the other day that she wanted to go as a caddy, which means that I'm probably destined. I'm probably destined to go as a pro golfer.
Yes.
I don't know if I can get a lookalike with anybody. I guess maybe the bold one is that I try to get an orange jumpsuit and I go as Scotty Scheffler, the jailbird, and she's the caddy, the Masters caddy. Or maybe she can put Valhalla. That one might be better. Valhalla, Louisville, Kentucky. But that might be where I will. That might be what my plans are for the weekend if I do that. Is that bad? Is it good? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's good.
Okay.
Sorry about the singer pop up, by the way.
I think. Yeah, no, that was my fault. Hand up. That's why you don't give me. I was trying to send a comment into y'all in our chat here, and I butchered it. It wasn't letting me do it, and I messed up. So hey,
that's hilarious.
That's the cue to get out of here, I guess. That'll do it.
Happy Halloween.
Yeah, happy Halloween, everybody. Oh, quick last question. What's the best candy bar? Mine is Twix. Yeah, Twix. Twix and Snickers, 1A, 1B.
Reese's is my number 1, but Twix is my 2, Snickers is my 3. So I like your list.
Okay. Rick?
I'm going to speak for all the allergic to peanut people out there. We like the milk chocolate Hershey's bar. Plain and simple.
Classic.
It's real good.
Classic.
I'm also going to say, hold on, let me get this real.
Oh, gosh.
The candy corn.
Ugh.
Oh, disgusting.
It's a pass. I will eat the candy corn all day long. I love the candy corn. It's fantastic.
Well, we're going to hop off here. Rick's going to eat some candy corn. Ryan's going to listen to the SEC teleconference call. And then Rick's going to rewatch all the Halloween Town movies because, it's what else are you going to do on a Wednesday?
I already did. I'll do it again.
For Ryan, you can follow him at rchump00 on all socials. That's SCHUMP. You can follow Rick Butler at Rick Butler. Also, be sure and follow Rocky Top Insider at Rocky Top Insider. If you want to follow me, I'm at Jack Foster Media. Be sure and like and comment if you want on this video on YouTube if you're watching, and subscribe to the channel if you're listening. We appreciate you listening wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to follow along for all of your Tennessee coverage needs on RockyTopInsider.com. But for Ryan and Rick, I'm Jack. We'll see you next time.